But anywho, for those that don't know, Mike and I were greatly impacted by the death of Charlie Kirk. It just, man, like we've not witnessed anything like that in our lifetime. A relatively strong political figure that just gets shot right before the whole world to see. You know, um, it affected me. I know it affected you. For the people to understand, Charlie Kirk, I wasn't necessarily even an avid watcher of his content. Maybe a couple shorts here and there every other week or so. But one reason why I didn't really understand why I was so impacted by his death and so saddened. But I do know one thing about him was he, unlike many conservatives, he was young, number one, and number two, he had a heart for the younger generation. I no one, I don't think any conservative um, had the heart and had the ability to reach the younger generation with the values that I stand behind. And the way in which he did that was going to the places that most conservatives would not step foot in, to the universities and debate and open forum with many people that completely disagree with him. Um, but Mike, you and I both, we are black men, but we have very different upbringings. You growing up here in Chicago and in this community. I want to know on your take exactly how much did Charlie Kirk impact you?
Well, I'm gonna start off with the day that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably around midnight, and I was still woke. I couldn't go to sleep. It's just the horrific assassination just kept playing over and over in my head. And knowing what he stood for, of course, the values that he had, like we said, it aligned it with what I believe as well. And even though I never met him in person, I watched his debates quite often because I liked the way he was able to back up what he believed with facts. And really, it helped me. It filled me up with facts that I can use when approached with a certain topic, like the abortion topic. Like that one hits real hard for me, considering my past and how I was almost aborted, and it hurt, to see this young man, a father of two beautiful kids and a wife, just taken away because of his freedom of speech, because of his beliefs and how firm he stood on them. And it helps me to want to be more firm and more bold in my belief of Jesus Christ, and to give out the gospel even more boldly now than ever before. Certainly not necessarily want to compare him to Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's a man just like we are. But Jesus was killed, crucified, rather, by people because he told the truth. And we see the same thing happening here where Charlie Kirk was simply telling the truth and was murdered for it.
Right. And yeah, the right context, I mean, you're a married man with two kids.
Yeah.
I'm newly married, no kids yet. And whether you agreed with or disagreed with Charlie Kirk, a life was taken.
Yeah.
A dad was taken. A husband was taken. And the fact that happened before everyone. And I got a chance to call a young man again. Charlie Kirk just had a way with basically the age between 12 all the way up to 30. We're in that mid-20s age, and it just hits different, I think, for us versus someone who's maybe 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a phone call with this young man. He's married. He's a young pastor, 2 children. He worked for Charlie Kirk for almost 10 years. And Charlie Kirk, he was a political figure, you could say, you know, worked as a key component in the Trump, as far as Trump getting elected. But one thing that he told me, this young man said that Charlie told him, coming from Charlie Kirk, politics is number 2. Number 1 is sharing the truth of Jesus Christ with others. And the fact that Charlie Kirk was very outspoken about his faith and about his belief in Jesus Christ and helping other young men like us become stronger, godlier young men, good, better husbands, better fathers. And that resonated with so many young men. And then just to have them taken. So, but I was asked, I mean, that same young man who I talked to that worked for Charlie Kirk, I asked him, I said, what are ways that we can support and be a help? And number 1, he said, continue doing what you're doing. As a local church, we serve here pretty extensively, and we're out there in the streets every weekend preaching the gospel. Our pastor street preaches on the streets of Chicago. We street preach oftentimes out there, preaching the truth.
Yeah.
The worst thing that might have happened is maybe an argument or a heckler. Today we were approached by a University of Chicago professor because I mentioned Charlie Kirk's name during that, and we went back and forth, But I felt the need to create this video. Many people are doing this, but I felt the need to create this because I've been getting approached multiple ways, whether messaged or asked or whatever, particularly from other Black folk asking me, how could I stand behind Charlie Kirk with some of the things that he said about Black people? Before I get into it, number 1, can I say, just because someone is not your color doesn't mean you can't learn from them. Just because someone might even be prejudiced doesn't mean you can't learn from them. General George Patton of World War II, who led our Allied forces to victory in Europe, he was prejudiced, very much. I can still learn from his mindset to win the battle. I can still learn from that. I don't have to be someone's close up buddy just because they might prejudge me for something. But you can learn from anybody. But off that topic, I'm not sure what we're going to call this, but, Charlie Kirk wasn't a racist, change your mind, I don't know, whatever. But some things that people have brought to my attention and have asked me and questioned me, how can I support Charlie Kirk and stand behind some of the things that he said when he said these things about Black people. And we found some things, right? Some things that he said, one of them being, if I see a Black pilot, I'm going to say, boy, I hope he's qualified. Well, a lot of people are just taking those blank statements that he said without any understanding, any context. Charlie is not here to actually explain what he meant by that stuff. So I at least want to do him the justice to at least bring up some of these videos of when he was talking about that. You'll be able to hear these. You won't be able to necessarily see them, but I'll at least play what he said. Sorry, just an ad that was playing. I want to pull this up.
My friend Colin Plume from Noble Gold Investments just released his new book.
Yeah, so last year you said something about DEI, unqualified Black pilots. You see a pilot on a Black pilot. Don't you think it was an irresponsible statement suggesting that maybe these pilots aren't qualified or unqualified?
No. But I'll tell you exactly what I said and why I said it.
Okay, go ahead.
I said, the pretext, I went through a whole windup. I said, United Airlines is saying that they want 40% of all their pilots to be people of color or women. We have learned that we have relaxed standards anytime that we try to reach racial quotas. Anytime we reach racial quotas, we relax the standards. Standards for air traffic control, professors, or college admissions. Therefore, when it comes to pilots or surgeons, if I see somebody who is black, as I said on the show, I'm going to hope that person is qualified. That's what I said, which of course is legitimate, because they're begging the question, we're not hiring based on merit anymore. We're hiring based on race.
Now,
So when you see a black pilot, you wonder, boy, is that person there because they earned it or because they were placed there? That's what DEI does. It makes you ask questions you otherwise would not ask.
so the airline industry is going to take an unqualified person just based off diversity.
Underqualified, not
Correction, yeah.
underqualified.
Unqualified, underqualified, whatever, uncertified, and put them in a cockpit
no.
and risk people's lives?
Those are two different things. Under and un are two different things. Of course, United Airlines will not take someone off the side of the street and put them into a pilot. But in order to reach a 40% goal, they might cut corners. They might accelerate the process in order to reach a goal. We know this through all sorts of DEI examinations and projects over the last 10 years. When you have to choose in life, either excellence or racial quotas will end up being the most important. And both cannot simultaneously exist. It's never happened before.
Okay, so when we talk about DEI, well, who benefits the most? Because black people really don't.
So I want to hold it there. So in context, because many of you who are accusing him of making that statement and calling him a racist are leaving out the context of what he was providing. The premise of saying, when you walk on a plane of a renowned airline company who has stated they want to see 40% of their pilots as people, particularly women of color. They're trying to fill gaps, fill holes, and doing whatever is necessary to make sure those gaps, those holes are filled with the racial profile of that person. So what is that in layman's terms? They're just trying to fill positions with people just because they are a certain color. And what he's saying is, when you try to fast track people into positions just because you want to fill a quota, you're gonna cut corners, you're gonna underscore things, you're gonna try rushing the process when a person who might not be quite trained as well as they should be in that position. I don't see how that's a racist thing. Any thoughts?
I agree. I mean, as a black man, knowing these facts, I would probably have that same mindset of seeing a black pilot when I get onto a plane. Are they qualified? Mm-hmm. Are they trained to get me to where I need to go safely? Especially if I'm going to take my family and stuff on there. Like, are they qualified? I believe there is something about they are at 6% of some sort with the percentage for black pilots, and they're trying to reach 40. Of course, they're gonna drop down and lower those standards so that they can reach their goal.
I just want to pull that up. What percentage?
Let's pull that up.
What percentage of?
That's a long way from 40%.
Let's just use United Airline pilots are black / African American.
Me personally, I ask the same question for any pilot nowadays, because man,
right? The exact percentage of United, this is AI, the exact percentage of United Airline pilots who are black African American isn't publicly disclosed. However, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, African Americans comprise 3.6% of pilots and flight engineers in 2023. United Airlines taking steps to increase diversity among its pilots, including United Aviation Academy, launched in 2022. This program aims to train 5,000 new pilots by 2030, with at least half being women or people of color. So he's not wrong. United is they're trying to increase that percentage simply to see quotas filled. Again, I mean, just an obvious observation. You don't see too many black pilots, right?
Yeah.
And so he's just going by the fact that there is a DEI program and initiative to see people of color or women in the pilot position. And when you just want to increase that percentage, just for the sake of increasing that percentage, what is the likelihood that they're not going to maintain the same standards that would be necessary? So I can't say I would call him a racist for making such a statement.
Mhm.
If that bothers you, I believe that you were, I don't know. I think that's kind of a small mindset to have, thinking that he's a racist because you took something out of context
Yeah.
that without fully understanding what he actually meant. The next thing people are calling him a racist for is he said something about MLK. MLK was awful. He's not a good person. He said one good thing he actually didn't actually believe. So you pulled up a fact check report that he made that statement not in a video format, correct?
Correct.
This was something that apparently a journalist was present and you heard him make that statement.
Yes. Here on factcheck.org, it says the story also quoted Kirk as saying that Martin Luther King Jr. was awful. Quote, he is not a good person. He said one good thing he actually didn't believe. Those comments are not available in the recordings posted to YouTube of the conference that year. The reporter who wrote the Wired story, however, confirmed to us that while attending the event as a journalist, he had witnessed the remarks, which were not made on the main stage, but in a smaller conference room.
So, number one, we cannot prove by video that he actually even made that statement.
Right.
We're going off by what a journalist said he heard in behind closed doors. Okay. So, obviously, Charlie Kirk is not here. We cannot verify if he said that and why he said that. However, we can pull up by what he meant, perhaps, about his views on MLK. So this is another video.
I mean, lies don't bother me. So, but yeah, I mean, did you follow up and ask them what their evidence was?
Yes, they're quoting in particular an event that you went to, December 2023, America Fest. You were talking about Martin Luther King.
I hosted it, actually.
Okay, perfect. You were talking about Martin Luther King Jr. and said that he has a troubled past and that the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s was a, quote, horrible mistake on the part of the U.S. government.
I mean, lies don't bother me. So lies don't bother me.
That is one video of which he's being accused of that. Let's see if I can't pull up where he goes into his stance on MLK. Let's see if I can't pull that up. I made this up too. Here we go.
Where MLK, in my personal opinion and based on every objective analysis, he actually gave us more race focus and less emphasis on character and conduct. Because here we are 60 years later. Do we talk about race less or more in the last couple of decades? I'm not only blaming MLK for this, but his core driving philosophy was not about a colorblind society. That is a line in one of his speeches. He would actually be closer to a race Marxist, almost akin to a DEI type philosopher if you go deep into his writings, especially later in his life. So, and I think we as conservatives and Christians must reconsider some of the mythology and some of the icons and the symbols that we hold up, especially as we try to reorient ourselves in a broken culture.
So what I can try to do is, number one, try providing some context on what he meant by the Marxist philosophies that were in some of his writings. I would like to try finding some of those writings to which you can go and check for yourself. But I would just encourage you to do your research again. Him making such statements and him saying these things about black pilots, about MLK. Okay, you need to kind of get your emotions out of a box for a second. Okay, you're saying that he attacked MLK and called him a Marxist or called his programs a DEI agenda. Okay, what did Martin Luther say about a colorblind society? That was his vision, right? That was his goal. He is saying, okay, he made those statements during the civil rights movement, made his act. 60 years later, are we a more less colorblind society than what we were? No,
Not at all.
not at all. It's still strong. Again, this isn't necessarily in a response to even defend Charlie on these positions. This is simply a response to which some people have come to me and said, hey, what do you think about Charlie Kirk's position on these things? And I wanted to bring that up in this type of format. I want people to understand, again, I still stand for the values that he stood for. Number one, a Christian, Bible-believing Christian that was professing a believer in the name of Jesus Christ. As I said, Charlie Kirk, his number one thing was to tell others about Christ, encouraging young men, whether you're black, white, or purple, to be the Christian that God wants to be, the husband and father, and exemplify those values. And then, I don't know, you have anything else you want to mention, Mike?
Do you have that one clip where the guy asked him what you want to be remembered by?
Back pull it up.
The one thing that you want to be remembered by if everything went away. That's a deep question that we all can really think about. What is it that we will be remembered by when we go, when everything's gone?
Wait for this ad to pass.
If everything completely goes away, how do you want to be remembered?
If I die,
Everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. Most important thing is my faith in my life. Christ is not just grace focused, he's simultaneously truth focused. He goes up to the woman who had a career in selling herself for sex and said, sin no more. Now, imagine today how much trouble you would get in if you would go up to somebody and say, stop sinning. You're being too judgmental. No, you're actually being Christ-like.
Remembered for his faith more than anything. I think back to what Charlie Kirk made most number one in his life was telling others about Christ, and number two was politics. It wasn't everything. That I can stand behind. And some of you, you've put your color before your Christianity.
Yeah.
And the truth is, I don't care what color you are, as long as you can speak truth from God's word. I don't have to agree with everything that you say. There's many Christians I don't agree with everything they say. There's pastors. However, if you stand for the word of God, you stand for family, faith, values that want to bring us back more closer to Christ and being a responsible American or just a responsible human being to take care and take ownership of your life. That's what Charlie stood for. I'm not trying to make him out to be no martyr or hero, but he was killed for speaking his opinion and speaking truth. And I would just say to those that are in support of this, to those that are in support of Charlie Kirk, like, I think one of the worst things you can do is just see something like this happen and do nothing. Keep your mouth closed. Go about your day-to-day life without, number one, ever trying to witness to someone, ever trying to tell someone about the gospel, ever trying to get out and to support your local government to make decisions that are best aligned with your values. I believe so many conservatives just complain, but take very little action. And this is just one thing that I thought that, we need to get together and kind of do. Me and Michael felt very, very moved by the whole situation. And we decided that we're not gonna let this happen in our history, and we just go about our day-to-day life and try being nothing of an agent of change. We operate and work in a very dark city, in a dark world.
Yeah.
Crimes out the wazoo. We both have been in violent situations, guns pointed and held, and death threatening and all that stuff. And it's a dark world, but we're called to be lights, to bear the light of Jesus Christ. We hope and appreciate you watching and supporting. Please share it, like it, send it to someone who might be encouraged by this. This doesn't mean we're gonna launch something, but it could. We'll see what the Lord has, but we definitely felt we had to get up on and say something. So we hope you got some encouragement, some value out of this, some challenging out of this. The Lord bless you all. Take care.